Howdy YouTube, Eznix here with a video for you. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through the build of one of my Ezarcher templates. Now I noticed on the Arch website that all of the LXQt packages have just been updated, and they're now at, I believe, version 1.0. Yes, finally, LXQt has graduated to a 1.0 release, I believe. So we'll build the LXQt ISO from my template, and we'll walk through all of the decisions and choices you can make to customize your own ISO. Hopefully this will come in handy for people who want to use my templates to build their own ISO. So let's go ahead, and I already have the LXQt template tar file on my home folder, in my home folder, so we will extract it here. So let's go into the build folder here, and we can see a number of files and folders. Now most of these you will not want to mess with. Some of them you certainly can and should if you want to change anything in the ISO you build. Now we're doing this in a VM. It works perfectly well. It's a little slow, of course, but it does work just fine. So the first thing you might want to look at is the steps.sh script. Now the steps.sh script is my little bash script that runs all of the commands that prepare and build your ISO. So let's open this up in Mousepad, and you can see I have my attribution, author attribution, and license statement right at the top, the version number, the date of the revision. Now I just revised this on the 8th of November 2021. The first section, define variables. Important section if you want to change anything that these variables control. The first variable is LCLST, stands for the localization basically. Now I have EN_US. If you have another country code and language code you want to use, you need to look those up and use the correct country language combination code here. Certainly can be done. The format is language, lowercase, underscore, country, uppercase. Now that should work, but you should look up what the locale codes are. You can do that easily in a web search. The key map I have is US. If you have a different key map, you can certainly set that right here. Replace any one of the variables with the variable that you need. Keyboard model, PC105 is pretty much the standard, has been for many years. Some keyboards are PC104, and those will have one less key on them. I don't know which key is missing on a PC104, but do your research and figure out what keyboard model you have. PC105 or PC104 should work for most people. My username, live. You can certainly change the username of the live system to whatever you want. Make sure it's all lowercase. Make sure it's all letters. Okay? My user password. Now, my build system constructs an ISO that requires a login. If you don't like that, you will have to do your own research and modifications to make your ISO not have a login. I will not provide any help doing that for you. You must do all your work on your own, or at least find others who will instruct you how to do that. For the time being, my templates, and going forward, I like the login. It's fine by me. I prefer not to change things I don't need to change. The login is one thing I have no need to change. So it's just more complexity added to the system that's unnecessary in my view. If it's necessary for you, you do the work. Use my user password. You can set your password to whatever you want. I don't believe you can set a null password or a blank password. If I'm wrong, let me know if you experiment. The root password. You can set the root password to whatever you want. You can set the root password to the same password as your user password. That doesn't matter. I prefer to have a different root password, and traditionally Tor, root spelled backwards, in the old Linux days was a popular choice. My host name. You can put your host name to whatever you want. The host name is the name of the computer. Hopefully the variables here with the comments I provide are enough to get you started changing what you need to change, basics. Now, the rest of the script is all functions. First thing the script does is test if you're running this script as root. You do need sudo or root to run this script. Display line error message. If there's an error in the script, it will break and display the line and the error message of why the script broke. Hopefully enough to get the script working again. You shouldn't see that. Clean up working directories. If you've built before and you do not remove the work directory, the EasyReling directory, which is another working directory, and at least move your out directory so you saved your ISO in the out directory, this does it for you. This removes the EasyReling directory, it removes the work directory, and it moves an out directory if it's there. I usually do this manually anyway, but if you forget, it does it for you. Requirements and preparation. Now, I do reinstall the Arch Linux keyring before the build. This just prevents any keyring issues usually. Usually there are none, but it's a safety thing. I then check to see if needed to install ArchISO and mkinitcpi ArchISO. Those are the build tools to build your ISO. So if you don't have them installed, it will install them. If they're already there, it will skip installing them. Copy EasyReling to working directory. Okay, the ArchISO program. Let's make the ArchISO program has what are called configurations, and reling is the configuration that Arch uses to produce their own ISO. The one you download from the Arch website is produced with the config reling. Now that config lives, let's go to another workspace here. That config lives in USR share ArchISO configs reling. This is a template, a build template. My build templates add on and modify this official reling template. Okay, so the script copies that template renames it and puts it in the current directory as EasyReling. Okay? That's a necessary step, so I don't have to supply all of the stock reling. I copy it to my working directory. And then I remove a couple things. I remove the EFI boot folder that ArchISO provides. I remove the syslinux folder that ArchLinux provides. Because I edit enough of those files and include my own splash screens for the boot that this is the most efficient way I've found, is to just get rid of the ArchISO supplied folders and I provide my own. I then copy the local repository of the 5 packages I provide into opt. And that is where Pacman, during the build, will look for my 5 packages. At the end of the script, I remove that EasyRepo opt folder. So if the script never completes, you might want to go into opt and remove that folder before you build again. It will be overwritten. It's not really necessary to remove it manually, but if the script for some reason is stopped before it completes, that directory will still be present. I delete the automatic login service from the ISO because I do not want it to log in as root. That's what the ArchISO reling does. Now the reason I do that is because I do not want a auto login, but in addition, I do not want to have to change the auto login settings to pick the user and then change any display manager settings to accommodate a root user automatic login, regular user automatic login. So to avoid all that complexity, I just remove the auto login of root. I remove a few other things from the default ArchISO reling. I remove the cloud init services. I remove the IWD service because I use Network Manager, and I remove the reflector.conf that comes with ArchISO and provide my own. The script then modifies a number of systemd units. ArchISO provides some systemd units that I do not want, and I need some that ArchISO does not provide. So the first section of this long function is testing for certain directories, and if they're not there, it creates them. Now some of these are there by default, some of them are not there. So this is my way of making sure I have the systemd folder structure I need for my ISO. Now if you don't want certain systemd units, or you want additional systemd units, you will have to figure out exactly where the links go. And in this section, you'll notice I create a lot of systemd links. Now, these are all created from the way the ln command works is the first section is where the link is from, the target of the link, and where you want the link to be. Now, -SF stands for symbolic and force. Normally you don't need the force, but I like using the force because that makes sure that the link is created even if the target does not exist. So, if the target exists, there's no problem creating a link. If the target does not exist, I still want a link in the systemd folder structure created to point to the link that will be in the ISO, because all of these systemd units will be in the ISO whether or not they are on your build system. Hopefully that's clear. I then copy quite a few files into my EasyReling folder. Now these either replace or add to this content. So the standard ArchISO Reling folder gets copied during the build into your my build folder or your build folder. My script will then copy the EFI boot folder I want, the syslinux folder I want, the contents of the local repository into the ISO, any files that I wanted to add or modify into the etc folder here. So all of the Calamares settings are here, the module configuration files and the branding are all here. Now you can change the settings that Calamares uses by changing the files in these folders, and they will be transferred to your ISO. So if you had any module settings you wanted to change from my settings, change your module settings. If there are modules that I don't use that you need to use, then you're going to have to research what those modules are, copy the configuration files, the template files from probably USR, Share, Calamares modules, wherever they live. That's close to where they live, but there might be a couple more folders deep. So you're going to have to do that if you want that. The branding, you're going to have to change if you want the slide, the logo. You're going to have to go into branding description. You're going to have to go into show QML to change any names. Let's go into branding description. You're going to have to change the name of your branding folder once you set a name for a branding folder. You might want to change the version name, the product name, any URLs. You can, if you have a website, you can point all the buttons that Calamares can have by uncommenting the button and setting the URL. That's all work you have to figure out what to do and how to do it. I do not provide any assistance in doing this type of work. It's all on you. So we can close that. The show QML. Okay, so let's just open with another application. I was already here, of course. Let's open with where is it? Mousepad. If you want to change anything in the slideshow, you can change the background image. You can change the font of the text. Certainly you can change the text itself. So I use bold. I use a certain size font, 1.4. the alignment, the color is somewhere in here. Yeah, color. So all of those settings, all of those options in the installer, Calamares installer, you can change, of course. That's all done there. Okay, and any settings, general settings, Calamares general settings, you will need to change. If you create your own modules, your own custom modules, you need to list them here as instances. Now I have two. I have a shell process move easy mkinit, which swaps in a standard mkinit cpio.conf file after most of the installation is done, so your installed system has a standard rather than Calamares cpio mkinit cpio file. I also do a couple steps in a finish module, shell process module. And then down here, you list the modules you want to show and the order of the execution of the modules. This is all stuff that you have to research if you want to change. You need to specify the branding folder, and there are some other options you can go through if you want. Let's minimize this. The branding folder, you'll notice, is Ezarcher in my case. So, in default, I put my own grub configuration file into etc. If we open that up, the only real change from a standard grub configuration file is setting OS prober, disable OS prober to false. So OS prober gets used by when grub updates. So those who dual or multi-boot should have OS prober, and if you don't multi-boot, it doesn't do any harm. So I figure it's safer to enable OS prober. Why is that not staying down? Mkinit CPIO, this is the standard Mkinit CPIO that I swap into the ISO, into the installed system with that shell process instance in Calamares. Network Manager, I just have a dns.conf file for Network Manager. Network Manager is not usually the default. Usually it's systemd network D. So I remove that and I use Network Manager. In the SCL folder, if you want to copy your own desktop settings into the ISO, you can play around with this. This is something that requires a lot of trial and error. I do not provide any assistance in using this SCL folder, but it's there if you want. Systemd, I provide my own Easy Pacman init unit, and all this does is run pacman key init and populate, and it goes in multi-user target. XGD, I provide my own reflector.conf file, and I believe, yeah, it grabs the latest 10, sorts by rate, only uses HTTPS, and saves it to the mirror list file. Very basic reflector settings. I provide my own locale.gen with Let's see, open with other application. I believe I provide the stock default one. This doesn't have an easy way to open it. It is really just a text file, but I'm not seeing Guinea or, oh wait, mousepad, there we go. This is really just the stock locale.gen. Now, if I left it up to, I believe, ArchISO, it provides a locale.gen with only that line. Now, if you have only that line, I believe Calamares will not display in its list of locales the full list. So that's why I include the locale.gen file. If I'm wrong, my way doesn't harm anything. I also provide a sudoers file that enables sudo in the ISO. So that is the entire etc folder. In USR, I add my easy mate folder to USR local bin. Now, a lot of builders of ISO-based respins will put their own custom binaries in USR bin. I have a problem with that. USR local bin is where system level binaries that are not provided by the original system, in this case Arch, go. If you mix your own custom binaries in with all of the system binaries, one, they're harder to identify if you need to find them if there's a problem, or remove them. So keeping my own custom binaries or scripts in USR local bin separates them from the system binaries. I just like that. Oh, forgot share. Sorry, felt that cough coming on. So the Ezarcher folder I put in USR share and then link this to the home folder. You can remove that if you wish and you won't have it. Icons, I add my own icon to the icons folder. And applications, I put in an easymate.desktop. So there's a launcher to display in the menus. Okay, so that's etc and USR. Let's go into the boot folders here. Now, in syslinux, I put my own splash screen, and I modify, I believe it's ArchISO sys Linux config. Let's open this with mousepad. Yes. So in the boot menus of the live ISO, I put my own label, and I add this little statement to the end of the boot stanzas here. What cow underspace space size equal 4G does is it gives the live ISO, when it's running, 4 gigabytes of persistence during that session only. It's not a persistent, that's not the right word to use then. It gives the live ISO 4 gigabytes of working hard drive space, virtual, to that instance of the ISO running. So you can play with it. You can install software because you have 4 gigs of space in that session. Very handy. Otherwise, if you don't have this statement in your boot stanzas, and you'll see it's in every one of them, depending on how you boot the machine with the ISO, you are very limited in usable space during that session. And in the KDE version specifically, you will get out of space or low space errors popping up constantly. So this is a very handy line or command to add to your boot stanza. Okay, so that's that. The rest of the files in here I don't touch. I don't believe I touch them. So I just edit this file and put my own splash screen in. Now, similarly for the EFI boot, I remove the one boot entry that allows you to boot into RAM. I don't think that's really necessary these days, and it adds a different file system to the ISO to install from, and it confuses Calamares unless you set Calamares up to with a custom, say, Calamares starter that tests for where the live file system is and sets a Calamares option to properly pick the right location to install from. So it adds quite a bit of complexity to various components of the build. So that's why I choose to just eliminate the option altogether. ArchISO on its own will produce 3 different bootable options in this UEFI bootloader entries folder. I just limit it to 2. And also in both of them, let's see, do I specify? Yeah, I specify the cow space size, and I also change the title. So you get Ezarcher Linux instead of Arch Linux. So that is what I do in both of these files. Cow space, space size, 4G, and Ezarcher. Okay, now we can get to more specific things like packages. The packages file lists all of the packages included in the build. Now the first 115 lines or so are stock ArchISO, what comes with Arch, the ArchISO if you download the official version. So everything highlighted is default ArchISO. I don't normally touch those. Below that are my own choices. And you can edit this list to your heart's content. However, if you pull out things that affect the running of the system in a negative way, that's on you to realize what you've pulled out and put it back, or put back a alternative. Now, I've divided my lists into certain very general categories. System level tools. You can look through this list, add to it, remove from it, do whatever you wish. After system tools, I have file system, and it's really just GVFS components. Multimedia, here's where I add a lot of stuff. You are free to remove a lot of stuff. I also give instruction of how to include Pipewire if you want to use that instead of Pulse Audio. Pulse Audio is still my default, but Pipewire is coming along. Xorg, You can limit this down if you wish. Networking components, you can limit this or add to it. Just some general desktop software. You can certainly remove any of those, add to it. Fonts, these are some basic fonts. You can add to them, remove it, remove from that list, up to you. Printing support. Now if you delete printing support, you're going to have to change the steps.sh script and remove the systemd units that enable cups. Just a warning there. Next, the desktop that's going to be installed. In this case, LXQt. The display manager that I use is SDDM across the board. You can pick a different one if you wish. If you do, you will have to edit the steps.sh script and change this line here and point to the display manager you want. Here are the cup services. There are 3 lines that enable cups. I mentioned that just a moment ago. If you don't want printing support in your build. Next section is Calamares dependencies. These are both build and runtime dependencies for Calamares. I like to include and keep all of them in the system, just in case the user wants to use the system to build or rebuild Calamares. Comes in handy. I think it's nice to have there. I don't remove them. They are not removed when Calamares installs a system. They remain. And then finally, I install Calamares in this last section. So that is the packages file I use. The pacman.conf file just directs the mkarchiso build program to use my pacman.conf. Actually, the profile def.sh instructs mkarchiso to use my pacman.conf. This file, profile def.sh, allows you to name your ISO. First 4 lines you can change. The rest of this I would not touch unless you know exactly what you are doing. Now, if you are adding, sorry, the cat is playing with stuff he shouldn't be playing with. If you are adding any files to the system that need different permissions from, I forgot what the 2 stock positions were. If you need to set custom permissions on files you add, you need to specify them in this profile def.sh script. Now you can see by example, my Ezarcher BIOS script needs 755, and the script lives in user share Ezarcher scripts. My Ezarcher UEFI needs the same 755, needs to be executable and executable by root and visible by all. Same with the EasyMate script. So that is why I need to specify the permissions for those files I'm adding into my build. Hopefully that's clear. And I think we're good to go. We're finally at a point where we can run steps.sh. I think I've gone through every possible file and folder here. Oh, opt contains the local repository of the 5 packages that I compile and put into my build. So the instructions for doing this are in Where are the instructions? I know they're in the documentation somewhere. I don't have it handy right now. So what we're going to do is open a terminal in this window. Let's make this a little, change the size a little bit. Okay, now we can see everything. Let's make this a little bigger. Now we can't see everything, but that's okay. We can see enough. Now what I like to do is become root. So su and my root password. And now I am root. You could use sudo if you wish, if you have it set up. If you've installed from my ISO, you do have sudo set up. So we're going to run the steps.sh file. So it's ./steps.sh, and it will start running. It will do all the work for you from this point forward. It's downloading and installing Arch Linux keyring, making sure Arch ISO is up to date, and now it's downloading all of the software. I do have parallel downloads with 3 parallel downloads set, so hopefully it should go by relatively quickly. I can't guarantee download speeds for you wherever you are, the type of internet connection you have, and the state of the servers you're using. We're not going to watch all of this run, but it will take some time to do all the downloading. We'll come back at maybe certain points when this is running, or I might just come back when it's all done. We'll see how this goes. I just decided to drop back into the video here briefly, and we'll probably pause again very shortly. We're at the stage in the build process where we're running all of the Pac-Man hooks after all of the software has been installed. Now, you might see warnings, you might see failed steps. Don't worry about any of that. This is all normal. We're now at the point which usually takes the longest amount of time. This is actually building the AirRoot SFS, which is your squash file system. This is building the live system that actually boots when you run the ISO, when you boot the ISO. So this takes the longest amount of time. You can see it's going fairly slowly. I do have 3 out of my 4 processors cores allotted to this VM. So this is about as fast as I'm going to get it running in a VM. If you have a multi-core, high core count system and you're doing it on hardware, this will obviously take a lot less time. If you have a 12, 16, 18, 24 core system and Squash FS is allowed to use all of the cores it can grab, this will probably go very quickly. For myself, it's usually a 7 to 10 minute wait, just so you know. And you can watch the progress bar or you can go do something else. So we'll come back when this is all done. Okay, I decided to come back, and at this point we're done building the Squash FS file system, and now we are actually building the ISO file. So this should be done fairly quickly, And after this is complete, basically we're done. We'll get some output here telling us our file is ready. Now I usually wait a couple of seconds or several seconds to make sure all the disk drive activity is done while it's writing out, finalizing writing the ISO file. So it is in this out directory. Here is our ISO file. It's 1.9 gigs. So what I normally do now is remove the easy reling directory. We don't need that configuration directory. And I remove the work directory. Now the work directory is pretty large, several gigabytes. That's where all of the ArchISO or mkarchiso did its work. So you can see the deletion of that folder usually takes, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute. Less than that, probably 20, 30 seconds. So we reclaim all that space, and it's not there the next time we build. Now I will cd into the out directory and run an MD5 sum on the ISO. And change the extension of the output of that MD5 sum to .md5. So now we can see we have an MD5 sum here. There you go. And we are done. We are done with steps.sh. We can exit out of the terminal. And what I normally do, since I'm now building in a VM, is copy this folder to an attached USB device. So let's attach a USB device. Mine just happens to be named ASMT. It's a USB to SATA converter. So we should see that mounted now. ext4 partition, but just one big drive. And it's empty. And we'll take this out folder and just copy it to our USB drive. So this is typically the way I get my ISOs out of the VM, put them on my desktop, my host machine, and test them. Now this is running at USB 2.0 speed because that is what the VM has USB set up for. So it's a little slow. Plus it's a large file, takes a few moments to write out. So even after this file operations progress goes away, the disk activity is still going to be going on. Now, depending on your speed, USB 2.0, I do have my USB drive is a SATA SSD, so it's a lot quicker than a thumb drive, but still takes a little bit of time. And we will test out this ISO in my host system. So you can see in VirtualBox the USB activity is still solid red, so it's still being written to. So it's not a good time to just yank it out. When this light goes off, then we can unmount the USB device and remove it from the devices list in the VM. You can see it teased us there. It went off, the drive activity, and now it's back on. So we do have to wait. But hopefully our ISO is all ready and done and working. We'll find out shortly. I'll pause the video while this is going on. Okay, that was pretty much done. Didn't really need to pause, but cut out a few seconds of waiting. So let's eject the drive, and let's remove it from the VM, because we're going to be shutting down this VM here. Just had to unplug and replug in my USB drive. Now we have our ISO in our host system. So let's go to downloads and copy. Well, we can just cut. We don't need it on the USB drive. Just move it into our downloads folder or wherever you want to put it. Doesn't really matter. Make sure the drive activity is solidly off. Cool. Okay, we're done with our USB drive. We have our ISO in the host system, my running system. So let's go to VirtualBox, create a new VM to test out the ISO. Give it 4 gigs of memory. Yeah, we'll create a hard drive for it. And let's get the settings right here. So processor, let's give it 2 cores. Bump the display up. I usually have better success with VBox VGA. Let's go grab our ISO here. LXQt. Perfect. And let's start her up, see what we get, right? We can minimize that. Well, so far so good. We have our boot menu. So let's start her up and see what LXQt 1.0 looks like. Probably looks very similar to the previous version. However, I could be wrong, and LXQt could have made some drastic UI changes. I don't know. I haven't looked at LXQt in a little while. Didn't really want to resize it there. There we go. Okay, let's log in. So far, so good. Now let's go with OpenBox. You do get the choice of KWin or OpenBox. When you install it, you will get that choice the first time you run it. It will remember that choice and just use the window manager you selected. Well, so far it looks a lot like LXQt. Let's go and change the monitor settings. 16 by 9. Yes. Save. Yes. Perfect. Close. Okay. Let's go to System Tools, maybe Preferences. Oh, about LXQt. Yes, we do have version 1.0.0. Very nice. And you know what? It looks a lot like LXQt has looked from the beginning. LXQt settings. What's the configuration? Oh, you know what? The icons are all going to be missing until we go into appearance, select an icon theme and apply it. Okay, now we should have, when we log out and log back in, all of our icons now should populate in the menus. And when we go into preferences, yes, all our icons are populated. Very nice. LXQt settings configuration center. We already saw the appearance. Let's see, file manager. Where's our file manager? There it is. Very nice. Appearance, brightness, date and time, desktop, notifications, file associations, keyboard and mouse, locale, monitor. Okay, so these are just everything that's listed here, basically. Just another way to get to them. Cool. So there you have it, LXQt built before your eyes. If we go into System Tools, Install System, give it our user password. It should. Authorization failed for some reason. That's curious. Let's try this again. Interesting. Let's get to a terminal. Sudo pacman syu Oh, it's live. Jeez, Ezra. Interesting. We are in the live desktop. Let's 10 minutes left to unlock because I failed to log in. Okay, I'm in the live desktop. I failed 3 times to log in because I thought I had installed it. Silly me, right? We're testing a live system, so now I have to wait. I won't make you wait. We'll pause the video. Okay, instead of waiting, I just rebooted, so we're back. And let's test starting up Calamares with the live password, as I should have known all along. And starts right up as soon as the user knows what he's doing, right? Or she's doing. 3.2.45. I just noticed this morning Calamares updated to 3.2.46, so there may be new templates up on the download sites pretty soon. Don't know if it's worth it, just a couple little bug fixes. Doesn't seem to affect my ability to install with this version of Calamares, but bug fixes might affect someone else. So you never know. Calamares updates, I have to update as well sometimes. Very good. It all works. LXQt at 1.0. Hope you enjoyed the video. I know this was a long one. If you stuck with me, thank you. If you didn't, I don't know what I could have done. Talked faster, made the computer run faster, not do so many little glitches and mistakes. I don't know. Whatever. Hope you have a good day. Take care. Stay safe. Have fun. You'll see me in another video, folks. Bye-bye.